Should I stay or should I go? That's a question that many pastors are asking here in the United States. Barna Group just came out with some recent research, and they have found that 2 in 5 pastors have considered quitting in the last year, which is up year over year of the last year when they started to track this due to the COVID pandemic. So in this video, we're going to break down the top 10 reasons pastors gave Barna and the reason why they are considering quitting. And at the end, I want to also offer you 7 reasons why pastors are staying. So maybe you are like some of these pastors, 2 and 5, who have considered considered strongly quitting ministry overall, vocational church ministry, in the last year. If you are, then some of these might resonate with you. And others of you, you're just going to be able to kind of peel back the curtain and see how your fellow ministers are doing. And just keep in mind, 2 and 5, that is quite a high number. In fact, Barna Group says that the number of pastors who have given serious consideration to quitting full-time ministry has risen dramatically over the past year. That's what they say is 2 and 5 pastors. They point to stress, isolation, and political division are factoring in pastors' desire to quit. As of March 2022, the percentage of pastors who have considered quitting full-time ministry within the past year sits at 42%. This is consistent with data from fall 2021 when Barna first reported on a sharp increase in pastoral burnout. And it confirms the growing number of pastors who are considering resignation, up 13 percentage points from 29% in January 2021. Which that is a serious increase in such a short amount of time. And I don't know if you are tracking with this, but in the church world, we've got a lot of pastors who are getting up in years and are getting close to retirement. And I've already been concerned as I was in Bible college, and then after a decade plus of ministry, I've been concerned with not seeing that next generation rise up and have opportunities and have spots to step into some of these lead and associate roles. And there's going to be a lot of smaller churches that are going to be in dire need of pastors, regardless if we quit. Many pastors quit prematurely. Let me just jump down here to this graph. I want to go through the first 10. So the number one reason why pastors are considering quitting vocational full-time ministry is the immense stress of the job. And I get that. The immense stress. That is true in any season. And most people that I've talked to, pastors I've met with over lunch or over phone calls, they're saying that the last 2 years have been a doozy. They've been extra stressful. And that checks out for me as well. That rings true. Number 2, I feel lonely and isolated. This has been exacerbated through the COVID pandemic, with the isolation that came with it inherently because of lockdowns and social distancing and quarantining and all of that. That has increased. So I think it's just kind of like shown even to a greater degree the loneliness and isolation that is often experienced by pastors. That's a typical thing, but I think COVID and all of the things connected to it has increased that. Number 3, current political divisions. It is a hard thing to lead people when people seem to be completely overwhelmed and completely consumed with things outside of the main thing. And we've seen political division be a big thing. I've preached on politics because I think it's important that we shepherd our people through some of the most divisive and through some of the most pressing things that they're dealing with. So I think that's a worthwhile thing to do. But I have to admit, like, it requires a lot of emotional energy to be able to tackle that subject because people have such a high amount of angst when it comes to political things. So yeah, current political divisions, see it for sure. Number 4, I am unhappy with the effect this role has had on my family. Yeah, it's stressful. It's a full family endeavor. I can see that for sure. And if you're a pastor who struggles with time management and struggles with saying no, then you're going to have even more stress added onto your family because you lack those good boundaries. So that's definitely something that I've seen as well. So number 5, I am not optimistic about the future of my church. That's so sad. And I get it, because through all of the last 2+ years, I think there's been an angst in myself and an angst in pastors I've talked to. And I imagine there's been an angst in you, where we look at all the work that we've done over the course of the years or decades that we've been at the church we're serving, and we consider all of the time of discipleship, all of the time of preaching that we've put into the work that we do. And what we've seen is our people in many ways, and the especially the times that it sticks out to us, have shown themselves to not be as spiritually mature as we thought, right? We've been surprised in some cases with how people are acting in social media spheres. We've been surprised at how people are acting when they attack us, and all of the stew of political division, societal unrest. All of those things are bringing to the forefront the lack of spiritual maturity and spiritual depth in our people, and it leads to a lack of optimism about the future of the church. So yes, that is certainly one of them. Number 6, my vision for the church conflicts with the church's direction. That's an unfortunate thing, right? Like maybe your leadership team changes, and where you see the church going is not where the church seems to want to go, because people don't like change, and it's hard to lead through change and to do it really well. So that is another reason why pastors are considering quitting. Number 7, my church is steadily declining. I think one of the aspects of burnout comes from when we don't believe we're doing a good job. And what is probably true about most pastors is that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and if we're not up and to the right in terms of our growth as a church and attendance and all of that, then it can be easy to believe the lie that we've failed. Churches decline for a vast number of reasons. If you're at a church that's been around for a while, that could be stuff that is deep within the culture that has been there far before you ever got there, far before maybe even you were ever born, even if you're up there in years. So that can lead to burnout when we feel like we're failing. Number 8, I'm not satisfied with my job. That could be a whole host of reasons why someone would not be satisfied with their job. Maybe it's the lack of pay, the lack of appreciation, the lack of support, the lack of just simply feeling like you have people who are coming alongside of you, the lack of a team. Yeah, I can see that. Sometimes it can be frustrating because you can think that, I could go to the marketplace and make a lot more money and have a lot less stress. So I can see why someone would say, I'm not satisfied with my job, because this is many times thankless work. Number 9, I don't feel respected by the congregants. Criticisms have risen so much, and when there's a lot of criticism and not a lot of encouragement, it can be really hard to even to be confident that your people are willing to follow you. And that's true even when the criticism's low and the encouragement is decent, because the criticism is far louder than the encouragement. And so a lack of respect or a lack of feeling respected by the congregants is so easy to feel, because all it requires to get to that point is like a handful of people. A handful of complainers can make a pastor feel like the whole congregation is just against them and would love for them to leave, even if that's not true. Number 10, I don't feel equipped to cope with ministry demands. I don't feel equipped to cope with ministry demands. Yeah, again, it comes back to, do we feel like we can do a good job? Or do we feel like we're giving it our all? And that kind of thing. obviously, if you feel like you're not doing well in the work that you're doing, and you want to do a good job, but you feel it's like everything else is so overwhelming, you don't have the time or attention to put into improving your craft or improving how you're doing things, it can feel debilitating. And I can see why that combination of things would lead someone to consider quitting. Now, before we transition to the top 7 reasons why pastors are deciding to stay, I want to share this. One of my favorite passages is 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, which in this passage, Paul is speaking to the young pastor Timothy, and he is saying, join with me in suffering like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. For a soldier's not focused on civilian concerns, but he's focused on his commander's orders. I love that passage. I love those verses because of what it calls me to as a pastor and as a follower of Jesus, right? I am to join with Paul in the sufferings of Christ Jesus and to remind myself that I am not focused on civilian concerns, civilian affairs. My focus should be on what my commander's orders are. So if you've been in a space where you've considered quitting, you've considered stepping away from church ministry, first off, let me just say, I get it. I've had the same thoughts. I've had the same struggles. I get it. But here's where I land, is until the commander gives you different orders, you need to lean in. Like, instead of just sulking in what you're dealing with and what you're going through, start to ask God, okay, God, how can I grow through what I go through? How can, what kind of leader can I be a year from now if I just continue to take the very next step you're giving me? Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened, I will give you rest. And Pastor, let me just say, I know you've preached on that passage. Let me just say, that is for you too. That's not just for your congregation, that's for you as well. So lean into him, and that means when he says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened, he's saying that you can bring all of your stuff, all of your struggles, all of your angst, all of your frustrations, you can bring it all to him, and he's going to give you rest. But you got to take that step to bring it to him. It's so much easier to preach the sermon about that. It's so much easier to say it on a video than it is to do it, but it'll be worth it when you do. Okay, so leaders who haven't considered quitting are still challenged. So what about the pastors who haven't considered quitting full-time ministry? While these leaders aren't feeling the need to leave ministry, they still experience a number of tensions. In fact, their top challenges are the same as those named by pastors considering resignation. So they're the same things. We're all dealing with the same stuff. But here's what's important for us to grab hold of. I just want to go over the top 7 of the encouragements by pastors who have not considered quitting. So 83% of them said, I believe in the value of my ministry. Have you reminded yourself of the life change that you've seen over the course of the time that you have been doing this work? Remind yourself of the value of ministry. The second thing that they've clung to, 75%, I feel I have a duty to stay and fulfill my calling into this ministry. Again, we're going back to that Paul said to Timothy, we're focused on our commander's order. So until the commander gives you something different, a different assignment, a different calling, we're staying. We're going to continue to plod ahead. Number 3, 73% said, I am satisfied in my job. That's a great thing. And if you're not satisfied in your job, then obviously you're not going to resonate with that. But start to consider, start to evaluate, how am I doing things? Do I need to change the way I'm going about this? Is this about me and my perspective and the way that I'm looking at things, my mindset? Or is it more about systemic things that maybe it's not quitting ministry, but maybe you're in a very dysfunctional church that maybe it's time to step away from? I don't know. You've got to work that out with God. The 4th thing they say is that my family supports me well. 67% said that. It's vital in ministry that our family is supportive. If we've got a spouse and kids, it's important that they're all on the same page in this. And if they're not, then that could be a reason to say, okay, maybe stepping back and stepping away for a time is the right choice. Number 5, there is important ministry work I have not been able to accomplish yet. Are you seeing the path forward? Are you seeing the work that still needs to be done? Because when you feel stagnant, it's because you don't have anything you're striving for. So what are the things that you're going after? Does your church have a vision, a mission that you're striving for? Do you have a 5-year plan, a 5-year goals that you're striving to? You've got, okay, I know what I need to do this year to get closer to that strategic vision in our church. Number 6, my community supports me well. That's a great thing. 59% say that their community supports them well. You're not always going to be able to be in charge of that. You're not really ever, but when you can see the support coming from other people, that is a great thing. And the key, I think, though, for us is to pay attention to it, right? We can get encouragement, but if we don't pay attention to it and we're just focused on the next critique, then we're going to miss out on the gift of the encouragement that was given to us. And the 7th reason why pastors are staying is that they feel confident as a leader, 52%. So maybe for you, if you're not feeling confident as a leader, as we talked about, like it's easy to feel burned out when you don't feel good about your skill set and your ability to do the work that you're called to do. Are there some conferences or some books or some courses that you can take? I believe there are. When we stop working our craft, when we stop growing, we start to stagnate and we start to get stuck. So what is something that you need to learn? Do a deep dive on it. Do some research. You obviously know how to do it. This is what you do, right? So start stretching yourself. You'll never grow if you stay in your comfort zone. And so maybe you need to look at, okay, how can I develop a skill set for myself that I don't already have and start implementing some things. Dr. Glenn Packiam, author of The Resilient Pastor, he writes in Barna's The State of Your Church, he says this: we need sages to advise us, leaders to direct us or hold us accountable, peers to remind us that we aren't alone, healers to dress our wounds, and companions who carry us when we can't carry on. It's so important that we remember that's the thing that we're called to, friend. The work you're doing matters. The work you're doing matters. So I hope and pray that you can be encouraged by these 7 reasons to stay, and that you are encouraged that, hey, you're not alone. If you've been struggling and you've been considering quitting, you're not alone. But unless God calls you away from this, continue plotting, continue taking the next right step, and just be faithful to him. If you're struggling and you're thinking that you might be close to burnout, I want you to watch this video, because in it I share a little bit of my story when I was getting close to burnout and 7 steps I took to get back to health. So watch this video. I'll see you there.